Hello and welcome to Tech Meets Wisdom. This episode is all about how to boost happiness using emotional intelligence. Stay tuned for more. In the world we live in today, emotional intelligence has become a really big word now. And joining me is Maman Saura. And we will be talking about what this all means.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I thought you'd be a great person to have this conversation with since you're such a well-in-tuned freelance photographer and you have such incredible photographs that you've been taking all over the world. I thought that we could have a really nice conversation around that.
Thank you. You do need emotional intelligence to be a photographer.
Absolutely, to be able to pull out the essence from people.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Well, in 1998, I believe it was, Daniel Goleman, he was the person who wrote the book and basically started the whole, the pathway to the awareness with emotional intelligence. And since then, it's become such a big part of organizations. And one of the things he says is that it's so much more important than having an IQ.
It is actually. I think that, and given how everything how everyone is feeling at work, it's a basic. It should be taught in schools or everywhere because you do need your emotional intelligence to be at work.
Yeah, and I thought one of the things we could do in this show today is to really zone in on another perspective, which is a yogic perspective, which is
that's incredible.
Yeah, this show is called Tech Meets Wisdom, so here's the wisdom part that we'll bring out. Because there is a whole philosophy in yoga that teaches you about how to bring more self-awareness. And with what was written out for the 5 features in emotional intelligence, the key is to have self-awareness, self-regulation, having empathy, being motivated, and having social skills. And with that, I think when you tie it down, you can really experience it from the pathway that yoga gives you. So for people, not
I'm very interested about this. It's I do yoga, but I never thought about emotional intelligence from that point of view.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I'll tell you how I started doing this work. I was in the corporate world at one time, so I have a really good understanding of how the corporate world works. And I was 27. I had gone to India to visit my spiritual master. I came back, and over the course of 3 months, I was diagnosed with all kinds of autoimmune diseases. And at the end of 3 months, I was given all kinds of pharmaceutical medications, and ultimately I was told I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer, and I had about a month left to live. And
my
so
God. Okay.
that was kind of scary enough. But the thing was that what really got me, I was 27, and I was a bit rebellious at the time in my life. So I was like, well, they're not going to get me. I don't, because my question to them was, where did this start from in my body? I was completely healthy all throughout my life. How did this even come about?
Yeah.
And so the questions, though nobody could really answer that for me, but in the interim, I found an Ayurvedic doctor. And I also had a divine healing experience where I crossed over and I met my spiritual master, and I asked to come back into the world and to do work in the world or be with my parents. I didn't want to leave my parents. And so that wish was granted. And I came back.
It's fascinating because I had a similar experience when, my son was born.
Yes, you had said that you were in a coma for how many days after?
It's about 8 days, and by the time I came out, I was sure my husband could not take care of my kid, and that's why I needed to come back.
You needed to come back. It's a strong will.
It is a strong will.
And that desire, it is always fulfilled because I believe the universe listens.
Yeah,
the universe will
so.
listen to your soul calling, the soul, whatever you want in life. So you can have anything you want, really.
Yeah.
And I think you and I, we get that we've gone to into the mouth of death and coming out of it. and then standing in the world going, you know what, this is my playground, and
Yeah.
I get to create whatever I want to create. And the universe is with you.
I agree with that.
So emotional intelligence, I think we did get that somewhere. But for people who have a hard time understanding this, that was my little story I wanted to share with the viewers as well. And I'm glad you were here too to share your story, because it's these similarities. It really does. Not everybody has to die to come back.
Yeah.
And then but we are humans, and we have a human experience on this spiritual plane, this world that we live in. It's how we look at it and what we connect with. But at the same time, it's very important for all of us to have a pathway that we can access self-awareness.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary. It's interesting when you're photographing people, you actually have to be very, very centered on yourself in order to show them that and open them, And I think that how do I get that emotional intelligence is not very clear to me, but it's there. And it really opens those ways of communicating with people.
Well, I think this is what happens, that because you are in a zone, you have visited that dimension where, you've been in that space of like just letting go of everything the ego could hold on to. And when you understand that place, you find love in there. And then when you are doing photography, or I'm doing my Ayurvedic medicine work, or healing in my realm, it's like you tap into that dimension, and you have this access way that most people don't know about.
Yeah, you're actually right. I think that makes in fact I think that part of that emotional intelligence comes into the happiness that you find in every day that you are alive. That you
Yes.
just have one more day and you're going to make the best out of that day.
Exactly.
And that exactly, it's the first point when you start talking to them. It's you are happy to be there.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And that happiness, like you and I, we found it. You and I know that space exists within us, and we can access it any time. But how do we teach the world about that? How do we have people also, we bring people into that when they're, like you said, when you went to Africa and you're doing photographs of people who have almost nothing, but you bring out the elements of like happiness in them.
You do, because I think you bring happiness if you're happy, and you bring sadness if you're sad, in a way. So I find in my life it's fundamental to laugh every day, but it's also fundamental to connect to people in a deep level. So if I'm just not touching your soul, then I'm not. It's not what I want to do. I think it's a very difficult way to, it's something to teach. So I'm actually curious what you're going to tell us about
Yes.
teaching, because I know I can do it, but I don't know how I could teach it.
Well, right now in our corporation, especially Silicon Valley we live in, we can see that so many people, they go to work, they hate their jobs.
Yes, they do, unfortunately.
Or they're just unhappy, or they're not present. They may love their jobs, but they're just not present because there's so many other things going on. And especially in the age of this technology and communication that we live in, how do we find the tools to access ourselves, our deepest selves? And this pathway, we have this model. It's called the koshas. There's a koshas model. Basically, it comes from Ayurveda. I think there's an image that we have that we can bring up as well. But it's a picture, and this picture right here, what it shows is that these are energetic sheaths around us. So basically, kosha means an energetic sheath, and the outermost layer is the layer that you can look at, just like an onion. In fact, I have an onion, but I didn't bring it here. I should have brought my onion so I could cut it and show it to you. But the very outer layer is when you see a person, like I'm looking at you or you're looking at me, we're looking at our eyes, our hair. We can actually physically see and feel. That's the Annamaya kosha. And Annamaya kosha basically means, Anna means food. So it's like the way the nutrition fills up the bones, the muscles, the mass of the physical body. It's like this vessel.
Okay.
And then the second layer is the pranamaya kosha, which means the prana means the vital energy. In yoga, you know, they say prana, you hear that word a lot. That just means vital energy. So it's the oxygen that you're breathing and how your body is being nourished with what foods and things like that. And then the third layer is the most important layer, which is called the manomaya kosha. And manomaya kosha is the mind. And that is the biggest area, that is the bridge that takes you deeper into yourself. So the other two are, I know these are hard words, but Vijnanamaya kosha, which is more intellectual, which has the discernment factors. And the very innermost is the Anandamaya kosha, which means happiness, ultimate bliss. So you can see the outer layer is a journey going to the very core of you, which is the ultimate place for bliss. But the very center part, the mind, is the bridge between accessing that happiness or not. Because the first two layers, the first two energetic sheets are all about how you show up in the world, how you live in the world, what are you eating, how are you nourishing yourself. And so we get very involved in this external factor. And then you've got the mind. The mind has the internal voice that we have, the internal critic, this little man or this little woman who lives inside our head that keeps telling us what to do.
But what I find fascinating on this is that I think most of the people stay on the first two outside, and
exactly,
and the people forget that there is way much more in the inside that you need to work on.
Yes. So when we look at yoga, you said it. That's exactly what it is. And when you look at yoga, one of the second verse in the Patanjali Sutras, so people who don't know what Patanjali is, Patanjali was the sage who basically wrote out some of the scriptures around what yoga is. And yoga existed way before that, but he was one of those that took all the different schools and said, okay, these seem to be the relatedness from all the different schools, let's put them together. So the second verse actually describes what yoga is, and in it says, I'm forgetting what it says right now, but basically in Sanskrit. But what it says is when your thought waves cease to exist in the mind, that is when yoga begins.
Really?
When there are no more thoughts in your mind, that is when yoga begins. So most people, what are they doing? They're going to exercise as yoga, or their doctor's telling them, go do more breathing exercises, and that's yoga. And they end up hurting themselves because they're forcing themselves in postures that they should not be doing because the body is not open enough yet to take more energy and prana into the deeper parts of the body to make you open up more. So yoga is an access way to tap into your higher consciousness going beyond this physical body. So when your mind, your body, your breath, everything within you is aligned, that's when yoga begins. And that's when self-awareness comes up.
That's pretty fascinating. So how do you teach people to practice yoga that way?
That's a really great question. I think the first thing is that we have to really break away from the idea that yoga is an exercise or gymnastics. A lot of times we see pictures of ballerinas doing these really flexible poses. That's not yoga. You can take a 350-pound person and they're doing the perfect posture because their body knows what's needed for them. Or you could take a child or anybody who's at any weight, any size, any shape, any form, they can all practice yoga because it starts with the breath. When we inhale, just inhaling itself is an act of bringing awareness and being present. But we don't have to be present because the subconscious mind is doing that work for us.
Yeah. So it's very interesting because you're connecting the yoga practice to learn emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Because it's the same things involved in both things.
Well, I got the verse. It said, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is chitta, means awareness.
Yes.
And yog means union. Union of this awareness. Vritti is the thought waves of the mind. Nirodha means nothing. There's nothing there. So in yoga, it's also yog means that we are here to have a conversation around it. We talk about it. Like, what does it mean for you when you breathe? What does it mean for me when I breathe? How present do I get? Am I able to let go of all the inner chatter? That when you quieten that inner chatter is when yoga begins. So when we go to yoga class, focus on the breathing, focus on yourself, focus on the deepest part of yourself. That's how you can access that.
Oh, I'm definitely going to practice. I mean, change the way I practice yoga.
Yeah,
I
so it's
think.
not like everybody now put your hand up and now we're going to do sun salutations and bend forward and then bend this and da, da, da.
It's an interesting relationship. I've never thought, but now that you're talking about it, I actually can see how much they are connected. And I'm very curious because I think I have a high emotional intelligence, IQ or whatever, but I never thought that I could do yoga or apply that to yoga.
Yeah.
So I think it could be the other way around. So how do you go both
Well,
ways?
it's accessing happiness, right? That's
Yeah.
what we want to talk about, how to boost that happiness within yourself. It's when you tap into, when you go beyond quietening the mind. And now you've come to a place where your mind has quietened down and now you can access yourself, like really see what's there inside of you. Are you hurt? Are you feeling pain of some sort? Which is usually what happens. We try to numb everything out, you know. And this whole, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, like Brene Brown,
Yes.
who we both love and adore. She talks about courage and vulnerability and all those things, you know. This is the place where it happens. You've got to be able to be seen. You have to be authentic.
I think one of the things I love about being authentic is that it always opens doors that you never even expected to be open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be somebody else or pretend like you're somebody else or show up like somebody else and not really show because God made you a certain way. You have unique gifts and talents that you have come on earth to show and to portray out in the world. And if you're not accessing that, then what are you doing? You're just wasting time.
Yeah.
You know, you really tap into yourself and you find out who you are. Who am I? What am I here to do? What is my contribution in this earth? And when you start coming from that place, so take a person at work, if they're very upset with their job situation, and they want to get out of that feeling that way, feeling so depressed or sad all the time. What do? Be present with yourself. Become fully present and aware of your surroundings and who you are.
So why do you think people are so scared to show their emotional intelligence?
Because we judge everyone. That's the kind of world we live in. The inner voice is constantly judging. And the way social media is made up, in one of your pictures that you had taken in a village in Africa, you showed there was a bunch of women sitting by a well.
Yes.
And they're having a beautiful conversation,
they are
hanging
laughing
out.
and they're singing. Yeah, they were having a blast that day.
They're having a blast. Well, how do we do that in the world we live in today? People at the end of their workday, they go to a bar, they get some drinks. They're really not present because you're kind of like decompressing from your day, the pressure that you've had. So you're really not present. And then you go to bed at night, you're still like stirring those things in your mind. The next morning you wake up, you get out of bed, grab your coffee, you're out on the road again. It's a constant cycle. You have to break this pattern. And the way to do it is to bring that awareness. And the awareness is very easy to do. You just sit quietly.
Most of the people in the current day and age cannot sit quietly. You realize that?
Yeah, they can't. And that's why, we have wonderful places now. There's so many yoga studios to go to and so many teachers out there. And this is why I created a system. It's called my candy system.
Okay.
My candy system.
I'm going to like this candy.
This is a really good candy. I call it Veda candy because it comes from the Vedic wisdom. Okay. So C, it stands for chakras. Okay. The chakra system, because the chakra system is a subtle energy body. And then A is for Ayurveda. And Ayurveda teaches you how to connect to Mother Nature.
Yes.
How are you aligning yourself with Mother Nature? You should know your binded body type, the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space, how that aligns with you. So it tells you if it's winter time, what to eat according to your body type. Summertime, what should you be doing? If it's too late at night, what should you be doing? I mean, there's so many easy ways to understand how to alleviate your pain and suffering just by knowing what you eat on time and how to sleep and lifestyle and diet, these simple things. And then out of the candy system, the N is for nourishment. And you learn about how to eat, how to nourish your body and mind. So nourishment is just not the food you're eating.
No, it's everything around.
Yeah, it's all the sensory factors. So it's what you're seeing, what you're eating, what you're listening to, everything. How is your body digesting that? Because if your body cannot digest it, it's going to turn into a disease.
Yeah.
So the third or the fourth one is detox. So your body has to learn how to get rid of these things out of the system. And that's the detox area. And purify the mind, purify thoughts. And the very last one is yoga. Yoga is practices. Your good practices will lead to good habits. It's very easy to make bad habits.
Oh, I can.
But it's very difficult to have good practices.
So how long do you think a person should practice yoga to actually get to the point where he or she is achieving this?
See, Mom, this is a journey of a lifetime. You know, it's that you just start. The first thing is the awareness that you wake up and say, I want this. The moment you ask for it, the universe will deliver. You know, it'll open up doors for you so that you can start accessing that.
In our case, that happened. We asked for it and
Exactly.
it was delivered. Yeah,
Yes.
and it does change the way you go around in the world.
It does. It really does. And then you start to show up in the world even more present. You show up in the world with more love for other people. When you love yourself, you will not be judging other people.
That is so true. That is so true. And when you love yourself, people will love you too, because they know that they are in front of someone that they can love.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but one of the biggest things right now is dating, right? Like you and I are not in that place.
We are not.
I could be, but but you're not. You know, it's one of those things that people want to find whatever's missing here. Let me go find a mate to fill that in.
Yeah.
You know, and that does not work.
No, you have to find it in yourself.
You have to complete yourself before you go into a relationship.
Yeah.
How can you expect somebody else to come and fill in the void if you don't love yourself?
I agree with that. Yeah. And the fact is, when you love yourself, everything falls into place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in a work situation, when people are at work, when they're also looking at, they're being judged, you know, they have to show up at work and perform a particular way. A lot of people can't, you know, like I have many clients here, they work for the big high-tech companies and all, and their companies offer all kinds of massages, haircuts, and all kinds of stuff that they could ever want, but they're so stressed out and they come to me. And in the beginning, I used to ask, why are they here? And I really got it. I was like, that's something that they're not offered. You can have all the material goods, but until and unless you have completed yourself and found that happiness within, you are not happy.
Which is why I'm so grateful with what I'm doing, because it just brings happiness to my day every day. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And I'm not quite sure if it's because of what I do or because of who I am.
But isn't that great that you can wake up every day and say, my life is full, like I'm happy?
Well, we know that life is too short and too quick, so we have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot compromise with our own lives and think that, you know, maybe there's something else out there, but it's all in here. All the universal happiness is within you. So how to boost happiness through emotional intelligence is really coming back to it's knowing yourself. The more you get to know yourself, and you quieten the mind, and then you can enter into that zone where you find the gratitude. You know, how can you have gratitude if the mind is always chattering and saying things? You know, that's part of the manomaya kosha, the middle region, the mind. The mind is the axis of the bridge that allows you to go to the other side. So you have the discerning factors. When you get to Vijnana Maya Kosha, that area is you have the discerning factors of this is good and this is bad. This is right, this is wrong. You know, it's like you have the ability to discriminate between right and wrong. Or you have had experiences. Last time I did this, it didn't work out so well for me.
Yes.
So this time we're not going to do it again. But the mind will be, no, go try it, you know, knowing that, especially relationships, people who are stuck in patterns.
Yes.
They can't get out of a pattern because they don't know how. It's not, they're stuck in that place of fear.
Yes.
And that constant inner critic talking to them and feeding more of that fear. But you have to pull yourself out of it and go within, because
actually fear is an interesting thing on this, because fear is just fear of failure. But if you don't care if failure, or you get failure as a success for NAS, like an experience, then you move forward, and you lose that fear.
yeah, if there's a tiger chasing you, you know, you want to run. But
Yeah.
if there's fear chasing you, you want to stop and turn around and look.
Yes, you do actually.
But we fear more than we fear the tiger, because
Yeah.
in where we live, we won't have a tiger chasing you. But
Yeah.
but fear is running after everyone. And I think it's very important to just stop and look at that energy, because if you can channel that energy and turn it into, I'm not going to let that bring me down. That's just an energy. I can feel it. I'm afraid of it. And I know that it's causing me some pain and some discomfort. Just being present with that and allowing whatever it is to move through. That's what anxiety is. Anxiety is living in the future, fear. You don't know what's going to happen. And the past is depression, because you're caught up in the past. Well, we are out of time again today,
Oh.
but this is so lovely. Thank you so much for being here, Mom, and with me.
Thank you. I'm really fascinated. I hope we can continue this conversation another time.
Absolutely. And for all our viewers, be happy. Find the happiness within you. It is all in your own universe within you. Until next time, take care of yourself.